About 50 cents each.
No, wait, pal, no. No, 60 cents, that's it. All right, we don't do business. I mean, black beauties are selling for $2 or $3 a piece in the street. Come on.
$2,500. Cash money right now. Or we walk. Fucker. Find a better price. It's just as simple as that.
60 cents. But we don't have a deal. It's as simple as that. Fucker! Who's got the money? Take it out.
The genesis of this project was that Larry Clark, the director, had done some very famous photographs in America. I mean, they've been in the Museum of Modern Art and so on, called Tulsa, when he was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is Oklahoma is very much like, for your audience's reference, very much like Texas. It's borders Texas. It's where a lot of the oil fields were. It's kind of a tough, rugged, Midwestern, close on Western American state, and it's had a history of the Bonnie and Clydes going through Oklahoma, people like that, and as rough a place as it is, there has been a history throughout of some pretty rough characters in that area. And when Larry was a young man in his early 20s, teens and 20s, he lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he was part of the drug culture there. And he, was an intravenous amphetamine user, and then heroin and every other drug you can imagine, with all these characters that he called police personalities, meaning criminals. And he lived with these people, and he absolutely documented everything that happened in his life. I mean, people were in drug deals. He actually documented a murder with his camera. And it was just understood that that was Larry's thing. Anybody who hung out with Larry is like, you're going to get photographed. And people kind of just after a while, it became kind of, as Richard Avedon would say, as close to pure photography as you can get, where people became so inured to the notion that Larry had his camera, they kind of forgot about it. So he became a kind of documentarian for that way of life, of drug addicts, criminals, petty thieves in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1970. And this story that was written by someone else, Eddie Little, was adapted because it was a true story as well, based on a true story, was adapted because they're very similar characters to the characters that Larry had associated with in his early day, to Larry's time and place. And so we were inspired by those pictures in that time and that place in Larry's life, and came up with this story that again, as I say, was based on true events. And one of the things I'd said to Larry when we made the movie was, I would love if you didn't know who James Woods and Melanie Griffith and Natasha Wagner were, for example, that you would think that a documentary cameraman had kind of had, like he did when he was younger with his friends, had somehow accompanied us on our various adventures, whatever they may be. And so we tried very hard to get an incredibly documentary feel to the experience of these characters. And so when we shot, everything was kind of handheld and a lot of improvisation around the events that we were very familiar with as actors and so on. So the film has a rawness and an immediacy and a quirkiness and an atmosphere that you don't expect in most movies. Larry is of this life. He has a wonderful capacity for observing things. He shares that with Oliver Stone, with whom I just worked for the 5th time. I mean, and they're both pretty mercurial, kind of colorful characters, to say the least. But both of them have in common that wonderful ability to be in the middle of a room and sort of notice the one thing that nobody else notices as being kind of interesting. And then once they notice it and photograph it, you go, oh, that is kind of an interesting part of what's going on here, So, I mean, Oliver's the guy who will walk into, and I think Larry has this too, walk into a debutante ball and notice the one girl who has, running shoes on underneath her cotillion gown, or you know what I'm saying? Larry is drawn to the odd, quirky parts of life, and he has radar for them, So even in performance, I mean, he loved improvisations. He loved to let things go on and kind of keep things kind of chaotic. And it's good for me as an actor to have that, because I'm a fairly well-educated, fairly intelligent man, and have a lot of experience. And it's good to have that kind of rational approach to things challenged and broken down, because it's easy to become too analytical and maybe sometimes, sadly, a little less spontaneous, and that kind of chaos keeps the spontaneity up. So I kind of welcomed it.
All right.
So, Princess, can I trust you to keep these two fucking idiots out of trouble?
Right on, brother.
Right on, baby. Bada bing. See you later.
One of the pictures I saw in Larry's book that was kind of really shocking to me, although it was a very, on the surface of it, very pleasant picture. It was a bunch of young guys sitting around, a couple of them had their shirts off, and they looked like guys anywhere. I mean, they could be in Manchester, they could be in, you know, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I mean, anywhere in the world, you know, just young guys having a good time sitting around in a couple of beer cans, whatever. And then you notice that one of them was actually shooting up while he was talking and smiling. And he said, yeah, you know, heroin movies are always, you know, the dark side of drugs. And, you know, there's always that moment when the musical stinger happens and the guy's, you know, putting the needle in his arm. He said, it's not like that. You know, he said, it's, you know, we all know the end of the drug story. You know, it always ends up with somebody getting killed or in jail or something. He said, but we never show the beginning of it, which is that, hey, it's a lot of fun. You know, it's a great life. It's a great ride. And we, I think, take that entire ride in this movie.
Everything's gonna work out.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Great thing about Another Day in Paradise, I think, is that it's such a shockingly real look at a world that I have always been fascinated by because I'm a pretty solid sort of, you know, ordinary conservative citizen. And I think all of those of us who are kind of provoked and intrigued by that world of crime that is so often misrepresented on film, you know, because it's such good stuff for drama and melodrama and so on. And we never really get to see it as it really is.
You're a gun dealer?
I'm a gunsmith by trade, but a fisher of men by avocation.
But you're a preacher. Doesn't that go against your morals?
Even Jesus Christ was a carpenter and his disciples fishermen, and we well know that Blessed Mary Magdalene, she was a whore.
Boys, I hate to break up the theological discussion here, but how much for the lot, Jimbo?
2,000 total. I prefer 100. Now, may God bless you and keep you safe under his protection for all your earthly endeavors.
Mel is a very charming character. You can understand why he's kind of the Pied Piper of drugs and crime for these two kids, especially for Bobby. You know, it's kind of a surrogate father-son story in that sense. Mel starts as a very charming guy, and he essentially means it, you know. So he's not like some psychopath who just, you know, charms everybody and then wants them all dead. He's just this petty criminal, you know, been doing drugs all his life and so on. And when things are going all right, he's a genuinely nice guy. When things kind of go wrong, he becomes somebody a little bit different. But, you know, nobody knows how anybody's going to act in a foxhole in a war. You know what I mean? So you live your life like this, and all of a sudden you're in combat, and now you live your life in a very, very different way. You know, all of a sudden who you fundamentally are under this kind of stress or circumstance comes out. Well, in this story, you know, there's tremendous stress that happens when something goes wrong. I won't ruin it for your audiences, but, you know, things go terribly wrong, and, you know, people become very different people when things go terribly wrong.
Are you all right? Yeah. Are you all right, Bobby? Get up, get up. Shit, we have to get you to a hospital. Bobby, get the dope. Go get the car, Rosie, now. Okay.
No, get him here. Get the money.
No, get the dope.
Here's a guy who's pretty smart, has a pretty cool set of rules, you know, is obviously doing very well and has been doing it a long time. And that's appealing because, you know, usually the life of crime is populated by pretty stupid people. I mean, a lot of people who get involved in crime are, you know, either pretty stupid or they're pretty stupid and they're on drugs and booze and you know, not having the best judgment anyway. And usually driven by a lot of neurotic stuff. Mel, as he says, is a pro. You know, and pros can really do a good job if they and stay at it a long time forever if they don't get too involved in things that they know are bad for them. You know what I mean? So, as he says, listen, you know, I'm a pro, but I'm also a junkie. You know, and if I'm a pro and a junkie, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when I'm going to end up in the penitentiary. You know, but if I try to stay pretty cool about it, I can, you know, I can last a pretty long time. And you know, I mean, if a reasonable, civilized person like you or I were to say, okay, I'm going to get involved in a life of crime, we'd probably do very well at it because we wouldn't be driven by compulsive, psychotic demons like, you know, serial killers are. We wouldn't be driven by risk-taking behavior engendered by our need for whatever drugs a lot of criminals are on, you know, and so on. We'd be very methodical, very clear. We'd, you know, assess the risks and the benefits, and would go out and would commit a crime in a very rational, very well-planned, you know, calculated way, and we'd probably be pretty successful. You know, the police are sort of geared to deal with the lunatics who are out there, driven by a lot of things that make them not very rational, and not very careful, and not very smart.
I am no role model. I'm a junkie and I'm a thief. So are you. We can't pretend that this is good for them. We gotta let them go.
These kids were using and stealing long before they met up with us.
Well, that doesn't make it okay.
Then what?
Okay, I'm not gonna argue with you. Especially when you've been drinking.
Hey.
So why don't we just talk about it another time? Okay?
They go with us. And I don't want to talk about it again.
First of all, you should understand that Melanie was totally my idea. And my partners, Larry and Stephen Chin, who's my co-producer, you know, when I brought up Melanie's name, they said, oh, should be a great idea. We never thought of that, but, you know, we can't get Melanie Griffith. I said, well, here's what I think the character should be. I think it should be one of those women who, you know, women in Hollywood always complain about, oh, there's no roles for women in their 40s, you know, and they always whine about this crap. But the problem is they're not willing to play women in their 40s, you know. Like all of the people in this town, you know, they're infected by this insanity about youth, you know, so they go out and chop up their faces and sew them back on, and, you know, they all look like they have their skin in the back of their head tied in a knot and so on. And you know, no one ever says, you know, women in this culture, for better or for worse, as a fact that we all know, hit 40 like they're hitting a brick wall at 100 miles an hour, okay? And most of them don't want to deal with that, so they run and they hide and they go to their astrologers and their psychics and their acupuncturists and all this insanity and so on. What happens to a woman in a culture where she doesn't have access to all that and stuff, and she's just trying to hold on? And I said, so what we need is like a Cupid doll, like a little, you know, one of those little sex kitten types that has now hit 40. She's a junkie. She's living with this guy. She's in a life of crime. She never had a kid. Probably they tried to have a kid. Maybe she had a miscarriage when he was out, you know, having, you know, doing on a drug run or something. We kind of built this backstory. So I said, Melanie would be perfect because she's always been America's little sort of sex kitten. And now she's not. She's 40. She's in her 40s or whatever. And she, you know, has a little bit of a rough look, you know, about it and so on, which she has admitted. You know, she said, you know, boy, I hit 40 hard personally. And I said, well, this is one where I want you to play that. You know, no hair lights and makeup and all this stuff. You know, I want you to look like a tough, over-the-hill ex-Cupid doll. She said, great. I said, because these are the kinds of parts that are going to get you tremendous attention. And, you know, I gave her half my salary and half my ownership of the film to come aboard, commensurate with her sort of star status in America and so on. Originally, Sid, her character, was a kind of tough-talking New York girl. I was supposed to be, you know, like a kind of Lily Taylor type. And I just had this image of her being kind of all-American and gone wrong. And Larry bought it, and it turned out to be great. And, you know, she jumped in feet first, and she had some resistance to it, and she kind of whined a little bit during production, you know, which, I mean, she's an actress, so it's with all due respect. And, you know, I mean, there's always a little bit of that, you know, but by and large, she was very, very brave to deal with it all, you know.
This is about money! Money! And we hit this, we're set for life. You and that little twat can have it made in the shade, and you ain't even hit 20 yet. Think about that. Think about it.
Vinnie Kartheiser was a young man that Larry picked. Larry has always, in his photographs and so on, been sort of interested in kind of male teenage sexuality. So he was in charge of the Vinnie casting, and so that left Natasha's part, and she was supposed to be 16. Natasha's actually, I think, 27 now. And it was my idea, and Larry said, absolutely, unequivocally not. She's not right. She's in her mid-20s. I want the girl to look 16. You know, she's from Beverly Hills. She's not. I said, she's a terrific actress, and she has that magical thing. Trust me on this. He said, I'll bet you $100 that I'll want to throw her out of the room. This, you know, Larry's like such a drama queen. You know, throw her out of the room. You know, the first minute she's in here, and I said, I bet you $100 you hire her. He said, I'll take that bet any day of the week. She came in within 30 seconds. He looked over at me and he kind of winked. He said, I owe you $100, by the way. I said, oh, thanks, you know. I mean, he fell instantly in love with her because she came in all sassy and started talking about, you know, all the guys she was, you know, it was all concocted, but, you know, she came in talking like a slut, you know, which she so unequivocally is not. I mean, she's one of the, you know, nicest, most professional, but she's a real actress. And Larry was sort of convinced that she was, oh, I thought she was like this straight girl from, you know, grew up in Hollywood, you know, sort of Hollywood royalty and, you know, real straight, and so, which in fact she is. You know, she doesn't drink, she doesn't do drugs, she doesn't smoke, you know, she's had the same boyfriend for 5 years, you know. She's, you know, one of the nicest, most civilized, lovely women on earth. But she came in acting like she was a street chick, you know. And Larry bought it, and she just played it, you know. And I said later when I got to know her, I said, that was really kind of a brave thing to do. She said, hey, you only got one shot at it, you know.
I can't do this anymore, Sid. I didn't think that we were gonna make it. And I feel so guilty. And I was so scared, you know, and I'm still scared. I don't want to do this shit anymore. I want to go home.
I'm so sorry, Rosie. I'm so sorry, God. Listen to me. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. Do you hear me? Nobody's gonna make you do anything, I promise.
It's interesting how the talent pool is sort of pretty thin. I mean, it's sort of for each type of actor, you know, when you're casting, there's like 4 or 5 really great actors for each sort of type of character, and then a different level beyond that. And I think it's just, I mean, I'd like to think that it's a lot of hard work, because I've put a lot of hard work into it, and I know a lot of people have, but a lot of it's just sort of a blessing, you know what I mean? You're just kind of blessed. I mean, you know, nobody, you know, I don't care how hard you work, you will never sing opera as well as Pavarotti, you know what I mean? And I think, you know, actors like Anthony Hopkins and, you know, there's so many wonderful actors, you know, this last crop, you know, Jeffrey Rush, or, you know, Bob De Niro, people like that, you know, they're just gifted in a way that you know, you can, yes, enhance it, you can improve it and so on. I mean, I have somewhat of a gift, and you know, a lot of it's just natural instinct, and a lot of it's just enjoying it. I can't explain it. You know, you can be on a really dreary set doing kind of bad movie and you don't give a very good performance because you're just not motivated, but you're doing something that's really fun, and as difficult as Another Day in Paradise was, it was really fun. I mean,
I got to have me a fox. I'm looking for a fox.
A lot of times you see sort of actors or writers or whoever, you know, as executive producers or associate producers, and really it's just sort of a, you know, it's a candy bar that they give to somebody and, you know, make them feel like they're more important. In fact, I produced the film, and I mean, everything from the Screen Actors Guild foreign residual TV foreign residual bonds to, you know, the actors' contracts, dealing with Larry, and, you know, I mean, it's a matter of public record now, and Larry's admitted himself that he was clean during the making of them, during the shooting of the movie, or so he says, and then during post-production he ended up getting heavily involved in heroin again, and all of a sudden we had a director virtually in a coma, you know, I mean, from time to time, and we had a date with the bank to deliver the film, and he had final cut, so we were in a terrible, terrible bind. And as a producer, you know, I found myself all of a sudden being forced to kind of take some pretty draconian measures with Larry to get him to finish the film, and it took a little bit of manipulation, to say the least, you know, and he ended up in a rehab and so on during the release of the film, so it was a little difficult. I mean, it was an initiation by fire, believe me. But you know, I found that a lot of my power as a, you know, quote, movie star, unquote, you know, opened doors to negotiate with people and to solve problems. Whereas if I had just been, you know, a producer and not known to the banks, you know, the various people that we had to deal with in the trade unions and so on, I think that a lot of our problems would have been insurmountable.
Oh my God! Oh my God! You're pregnant! Oh my God! Oh my God! What do you mean everybody doesn't need to know? What, am I being loud? Is that what you mean?
You know, I've been in this business a long time, and I see so many movies that are made that are really just kind of cookie-cutter formula movies that are just cranked out. I mean, I look at a billboard sometimes, and I go, I'm going to avoid that one. You know, it's the same old thing, and they always have those, like, generic titles, you know, Sudden Impact, or I hope that's not the title of a real movie, but, you know, all those, you know, Force Assault, you know, all those stupid-ass movies. And I get to the point where, for me, entertainment is something that is kind of stunning. I won't say shocking because that has a different connotation, but it is shocking, and that somehow, for me, either reinvents film as I've come to expect it, and sadly been bored by for a long time, or in some ways gives me an insight into things. And I don't mean, you know, eat your vegetables, they're good for you. I mean an insight in terms of a kind of stunning depiction of human behavior in a certain circumstance that is also exciting to watch, you know, just as a story.
In every grain of sand, or the flowers of indulgence and the weeds of yesteryear, like criminal